So let's go ahead and talk about that practice code challenge. The national park visits one. Uh, First off, drop a 1 to 5 in chat and let me know how you think you did. And we'll say a 3 is passing. 2.8. Yeah, that's the official rubric is like it's a 1 to 5 scale and 3 is passing. Like should be a 2 point scale or passing or not
Did you
passing.
ask a good question? Actually, I just got it. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. 1 to 5, how you feel like you did on the challenge.
Oh, I'm at a 0.
Excellent. Good. Then we're not wasting our time here. Um, the worse you do, the more stuff we have to do. That's great. Um, awesome. It's not worse. It's just you don't know yet. Cool. Yeah. Sorry about those tests. Had some more conversations today, trying to get everything in order, trying to get it set up before you guys get it, but do what we can. Cool. So let's go ahead and go through this. I have a heart out at um, 2 Mountain Time. So before we jump in, is there any part of the challenge that you got stuck on or that you just didn't get at all?
Uh,
One of the things. Oh, sorry, Jason. Go ahead
no, you
first.
can go. Okay.
Okay.
Uh, I think primarily it was just the tests kind of made it really hard to focus on what I was doing, and I guess I just want to make sure it's said out loud that I hope the actual code challenge has the tests written right, because I realize that we can intuit that by looking at them, but it took me 35 minutes out of the hour and a half to figure that out. So
You're 100% right. They
um,
should be right. And I'm going to go through I've picked out the challenge for tomorrow. I'm going to go through it and just do it myself and make sure that tests work. If they don't, I will yell some more. As of this morning, they did not. So
What
there,
what psyched me out? What psyched me out as well was I was looking at the core deliverables, and while I was checking each one of it off, um, I guess one thing that threw me off is I was expecting the test to reflect that,
Mhm.
and when they didn't, I was like, did I do something wrong?
Oh,
So not all the deliverables show
yeah.
up as far as like what the test is asking for. And that's what like really threw me off as well. I was like, why isn't it passing? I like did the deliverable. So
Yeah. And when in doubt, lean on the deliverable first. And you know, and it also the one thing I don't like about PyTest is it puts your the tiniest possible green dot for a pass instead of just showing the big green. So that's really a thing. But yeah, so one of the other instructors went through some of the other stuff this morning, and there were 2 problems with the code challenge. So we talked to the curriculum team, and those are sorted out. I'm going to go through it again myself this evening or this afternoon because I don't trust anyone but these eyes. So yeah, cool. Yeah, definitely we'll get those tests going. Yeah, what else do we have?
I think another thing was the imports were not, there was an import missing that we realized we needed to include at the top of one of the files.
Hmm.
So it was maybe just hoping that they're there.
Cool. Yeah. I'll keep an eye out for that as well tonight or this afternoon. Awesome. Anything else before we jump into the code? Awesome. Let me go ahead and share my screen then. Big red button. Reading. Blue, blue. Come on. Cool. So yeah, looking at the tests here. Ugh. Um, so I pulled it all down, did my pip install. I haven't run the tests because they're all gonna fail. So we did a lot of part running tests. Great. So let's jump right to the deliverables. I'm gonna kind of just roll through this, not super fast, but if there is anything that you want to stop and talk about, feel free to just holler and we'll do that. So we have 3 models. We've got our park, our visitor, and our trip. Park has many trips, visitor has many trips. Trip belongs to both of those. So a visitor is going to have a trip, national park or park is going to have a trip, national park is going to have a trip. And then national park is going to have many visitors through the trips, and the visitor is going to have many national parks through the trips. So that's the same triangle shape that we saw yesterday. Great. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we have here. So we've got our visitor. It's going to take self and a name, and it's going to return the name. And it must be of type string, and it must be between 1 and 15 characters inclusive. Great. So let's go ahead and the visitor. Nothing. Great. Cool. So we're going to initialize it, and it's going to take itself and a name. So let's give it that name. Oops. Learn how to type a little bit. Name. Great. Since we're going to be doing this check, let's go ahead and set the what do we want to do? Yeah, let's do self name, no semicolons, and that should pass 1 test, I think. Oh, nope, don't stop. Nope. Okay, thank you. That might pass the first test there. Nope, nothing at all. Oh, because we don't have our interesting. Yeah, I bet if we just do that, it's going to pass that first test. No, fascinating. Cool. So let's go ahead and do the attribute thing. Yeah, doing good. Yay tests. So I wonder what it was failing on, because just having a name should bring it back, right? Takes 1 positional argument, but 2 were given.
I think you're looking at national park instead of visitor.
You know what? You are correct. Thank you. There's my greens. Okay. Whew. Okay, so that's great ordering. Let's and I wish there's a way to make this stuff very green. It makes things so easier, or at least easier to check. So cannot change the name of the visitor. It's not checking for the length, but that's a requirement, so we're gonna do that anyway. So let's use our things here. We'll do set name, and that's just gonna say self name equals name. And you know what? I'm just gonna say that, because that should, when we add the setter thing, use that. We'll find out. Get name self. Cool. So this is just going to return the name. And how do we set those up to be getters and setters?
Name equals property
Yep. And we give the 2.
getter and setter.
Get name. Perfect.
The getter comes first, the setter comes second.
Oh, you're right. Getter and setter. Thank you. So let's see. That should give us a little bit more green up here somewhere. Okay, so here's where we want to check that it is a type string. And again, looking at the test.
I think you have a typo in the init.
Oh yeah.
You need to do an underscore after self dot.
Yeah, I was wondering if we do the just dot name. I think it'll use the things that we set up here, because it was initialized with a name. So I think that means that it's going to use the setters that we write when we do it like this. so that way we can include all the validation and whatnot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, fancy.
Thank you.
I think the other way will work for this set of tests, but I just want to see if this works. Cool. So we want to check to make sure that the type of the string or type of the name is a string, and that is between 1 and 15 characters. Great. So I'm going to put an if here, and we can say type name equals string. Is it checking for a string? I forget. It's a string, right? And 1 is less than or equal to.
Would string be in quotes here?
That's my
That's
question.
an actual question. I don't think so, but if I'm wrong, somebody else can.
I don't remember. Let's find out. I
didn't use an instance, so
say that again.
I used an instance instead of type string.
Oh, interesting. I think both will work, right? Let's find out.
They both return true or false, depending on whether the type is the same.
Cool. Len instead of dot length. This is the one part of Python that I actually like. Cool. So here's where we're doing our type checking and our validation on size. I'm expecting 3 dots. I'm prepared to be disappointed. 1, 2, cannot change the name of the visitor. Okay, cool. So here's what we're going to do. We're just going to put a pass on set name. And we're going to move this validation. Oops. Going to move this validation up here. And then we are actually going to set that like that. Okay, I feel better about that.
I do want to, in case anyone was wondering, the type of something double equals, then the type is the same thing. It's just typed differently as is instance, and then the object, and then the type of the object. They're both the different ways of writing the same thing.
More than one way to do it. I like it. Cool. So it looks like we got our 3 dots. I'm happy with that. Unless there's questions, we'll move along.
Do we still need the get names? Oh, so set name is just a pass, so it'll never. Gotcha. Okay. So I actually do have a question about this when it comes to the code challenge, particularly. I had this working where it would just throw an attribute error if you tried to set another name to it.
Yeah.
Does that count as cannot set name?
Or
do we have to make it handle without errors?
It should count. If you, I think this one doesn't have it, but the other one has tests that will check for exceptions instead of just not doing it. But either way is fine.
As long as it does the thing, right?
As long as it does the thing.
I'm going to try to make it handle the error at least in some way, but I won't waste time on it if it's taking too much. That's all.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, handling the errors is extra.
It fails the tests because it says, "Oh, it threw an attribute error." So,
yeah, I'm pretty sure I'll double check again that the test on the challenge tomorrow will have exception tests that you can uncomment to make that work. So we'll see about that.
Okay.
Real quick, why did we pass the set name?
Because we don't want you to be able to set the name after the initializer.
Can we just omit it altogether?
Omit what?
The set name. I keep forgetting the keyword attribute or whatever it's called. The whole function.
Is the question if we can do that?
Yeah.
Let's find out. I honestly don't know.
No.
Nope, that does not work. I think it's
yeah. So I had that problem on yesterday's practice coding challenge, and it is valid syntax to set a property with just a getter and not a setter. But with the way that these tests are written, it won't pass the test. It would throw an exception instead.
That's exactly what I was just talking. Exactly what I was just talking about. That'll throw. It probably shows an attribute error.
That's right.
Yeah.
Down here.
So for this instance, we would have to do a define set name and then just pass it.
Yep, exactly. That's correct. Cool. Any other questions before we hit the next part? Which should be very similar.
Just one real quick, actually. What Eric, I think, alluded to earlier about proper syntax and being able to pass a get name without a setter. But on this instance, the tests were throwing errors when we are not passing anything when we did that. What best practice would be to just set that as a pass, so in future references we wouldn't get that. Okay.
For the challenge, I think.
How about like in general speak? Or is it because of the tests that happened?
No. In a real application, I encourage exception throwing all over the place. We don't really include that in the required part of the curriculum, unfortunately. So we don't really test for that. Okay,
this is just because of the test that would be finicky.
Yeah.
Oh,
because we're testing for the bare minimum, not the yeah. But if you want to write exceptions, there should be stuff to handle that in the real one. Cool. Let's go on to the parks. So again, our parks have a name, and we want to not be able to change the name after it's done. I'm just gonna say name here. I'm not gonna say pass, just to get rid of that. And again, this is stuff that looks very similar, right? So and it doesn't have any type checking on this, right? Just name. Great. So we're gonna take self name, and we're gonna say self dot name equals name, and we're going to do our set name. Nothing. Get name. And then we'll do get name, set name. Cool. I think that'll do it. I don't think there's any extra stuff. Let's see what we get. National Park. There's our one. It says string. Okay, cool. Let's bring in our that should pass them all. There we go. Cool. So an even easier version of the one we just did. So trips. So this takes self visitor, a national park start date. I'm just copy this. There we go. So for national park or trip, sorry, trip is going to take self visitor national park start date and end date. Great. It should be initialized with those. I don't know if it tests for strings or not, but let's find out. Self visitor self national park start date and self date. I think that's all it wants from there. Let's see if that's true. Yeah, go for it. What was that? Oh, it looks like, is it not testing for the? There it is. National Park visitor.
There's a typo on line 7 too. Might be throwing some things off.
Here, national
Nation Park.
There. Are there? There's no test for trips. There's no test for trips. Cool. Well, that looks right to me. I don't, so it's not checking any of those, so I'm happy leaving it like that. So that's the easiest possible case there. Let's go ahead and start looking at our relationships. Before we do that, any questions about any of this?
I think you have to check that the start date and end date are strings.
Okay, cool. If parentheses type cool, and there's no test for it, so that looks good. Awesome. Let's take a look at these relationships. So the trip should return the visitor object of the trip, and national park should return the national park object for that trip. Is it checking for that? It's not checking for that. Great. I feel like that's done then. So let's go to the visitors and see that there's any tests that failed because of that. So visitor trips returns a list of all trips for that visitor. List of trips must contain trip. So this is very similar to what we did, and in fact, why does it have it all there? Interesting. Let's go to visitor. So visitor wants to, I'm just gonna have, yeah. We'll call it trips. And so this is a class variable, a static variable that we're going to be adding the trips when we create them. So all we need to do is say trips append self. And we need that function that returns it. Yeah. Is it on the? Yeah, so it's on the object. Oh, yeah. Not going to be all the trips. It's going to be return this list of all trips planned for this park. Sorry, so that's an instance variable. Self trips. And so we're just going to say, and then this is going to be self. Cool. And we just want to return self trips. Cool. Let's see if that works. Visitor has many trips. It does. It does. What does that test look like?
I think you're appending the actual visitor object itself to self.trips and not
Oh, yes.
the actual trip.
Yeah. I'm doing this completely backwards. That's right. So this is where we want the self trips. We want the add trip. Self, and trip. Absolutely right. Cool. So we're appending a trip. Now that means we need to add the trip there from when we create the trip. So here's on the init. I don't think I like it where these are. I'm going to do this. Cool. And this way the whole thing is checked. Oops. Oh no. Why is it doing spaces? Okay. Python. There we go. Cool. So here's where we want to, if this is all good, then we're going to visitor add trip self here. So, and we don't need to import it here because the lives on the object itself. So let's see if that explodes or not. Visitor. Nope. Okay, cool. What do we get here? Do. Trips. National Park has no attribute trips. Yeah, that's true. Nope, sorry. Then that's one.
Oh, I think it's because your self.trips variable is the same name as like the trips function or method. No,
Uh,
in
Visitor.
visitor. Like I think it thinks because I was getting that error before, like the trips variable or
Mm.
attribute, sorry. It's like confusing that attribute with
Oh, yes. Thank you. So let's just make it a private. And there. Yep. Of course, it doesn't yell about that, does it? Yep. No, it doesn't. Okay, cool. Hey, visitor has many trips. Visitor trips are of type trips. Cool. Thank you for catching that. That might have taken me a while. Cool. And so we're gonna list up parks as well. So this is, yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna add, there probably should be two different functions, but I'm gonna add it here. And here's
Can you
what,
go back to trips real quick?
yeah. Here.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. I think what I'm gonna do here is do self parks, and in add trip, I'm gonna say
Can I
self.
ask, can I ask a question?
Mhm.
So in the trip py file, you can do visitor.add underscore trip function because the visitor is a parameter in init, so you have access to the method.
Yeah, so it's
class.
passing in a visitor object, and that has access to all the objects or all the methods on that object. So those are built into the object.
Okay,
So you don't need to import it. You would need to import something if you were just using it without a reference to it. Yeah.
but if it's outside of the init function, then you'd have to import it, right? Because it's inside of init, you can use the.
But if we had a visitor somewhere else, we could use it. If we wanted to like create a new visitor, capital V, we would have to import that for sure. But anything that's any parameter or any parameters or methods that are on an object, they're available without importing. You don't need to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Cool. So I don't know if this is kosher or not. Since we're adding the trip, oh, interesting. Um, you know what? I don't think I even want to do that. Now that I think about it. So the task is national parks. I can tell that this was copy pasted because it is in camel case instead of underscores. Or it's all one word, I guess. Ugh, even worse, the worst possible way. So all I want to do is return the list of national parks, unique list of all parks that we visited. So we already have the trips here, so we don't need to keep the parks separately. So let's do that fancy stuff we did before. We want to return a list of the parks. So we have the trips. I'm just going to map the self trips, and it's the iterable, it's the function first. Dutch. So the function is going to be a lambda. It's going to be a arrow function basically. Lambda trip goes to trip, and is it national park? National underscore park.
I'm sorry. I didn't get to the far enough in the modules to understand lambda. What does that do precisely?
This is basically just an arrow function. It's an anonymous function. So lambda is a math thing. Don't worry about why. It's just the word we use here. And so basically it's saying this is just a little function. This is the parameter, and this is what it returns. And so we would use this in the same place that we would use arrow functions in JavaScript. And we just have like a little bit that we just want to return something from. So in this case, our map, we're turning our list of trips into a list of parks. And so since we're changing a list into a list of the same size, we're going to use a map.
Sounds good.
That makes sense? Or close?
Kinda.
And if you're not comfortable with using maps, like we did yesterday, you can just use the iterator pattern, like making an empty array, looping through it, adding things. You can even check, if it's not in, etc. There's many ways to do it for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this is returning the list. This is not a unique list. So what we want to do is the shortcut way, probably the right way, but the Pythonic way, but seems like a hacky way. So I'm just taking that list that might have multiples. I'm turning into a map, so it'll all be unique, and I'm turning that map back into a list, and that's what it's going to return. Let's see if it hates that. This is visitor. Fascinating. It passed these, but didn't pass this one. Why not? Is this one of the ones that have a problem? As many parks.
The trips need 2 strings for start and end date instead of a number.
2 strings. Why would they do that? The heart. And cool.
No, like each initialization needs a start string and an end
Start
string.
date and end date for each one.
Oh, start.
If you look at the test above,
Yeah.
the trips are initial. Yeah.
There we go. I don't care. As long as they're strings. Do this one here. There we go. Great tests. Visitor has many parks. Still no good. Am I doing that right? Visitor, park, start, end. Visitor, park, start, end. Interesting. Let's see. Let's see if I did this completely wrong. I'm just gonna say parks equals this. Parks. And so here I'm just gonna print parks. Let's see if the test is wrong or I'm wrong. Where it's not calling it at all. But it's getting that from I'm confused.
I think it's testing that. Oh, never mind.
So we're getting the national parks here. Oh, you know what it's doing?
It's testing if the park.
It's testing to see how many visitors the visitor has.
Shouldn't it be P1 in Viz and P2 in Viz as well?
Park 1 in. So we want the.
It's testing for the existence of the parks in the visitor object.
So we want the P1 in Viz. Yeah, so it was backwards. Again, I don't know if that was copy pasted or what. So we're looking for this park and the list of parks, that park and the list of parks. Great. Debugging the test while we're doing this. Okay, cool. That totally works. Whew, ugly, ugly, ugly. Cool. So that's that. And let's see if the national park thing works as well.
It's also backwards there.
Jeez, how is it? How is it backwards there? Where is it? Park.
You're in visitor test. It's a national park test. Different
My-
file.
My eyes are glazing over. Has many visitors.
It's a different file entirely.
Oh, it's a different file entirely. You are correct. Oh man. There we go. Great. That's backwards in here. We're looking for the trips in. Is that right? Looking for the trip in that. No,
Oh wait,
that looks right. We'll find out if it's right or not when we get to it.
I have a different test in my code than what,
Oh, really?
than what you have right now. Yeah.
Huh. They may have updated it since I complained. Hopefully. I guess I
Certainly
did.
possible.
I will definitely submit a pull request on this because this is not cool. It's not cool. All right, cool. Let's go and add our trips and visitors to that. So when we create a trip, we're going to want to call trip or national park and trip. That. So now we just need to add the add trip to the national park. Trip and self trips, which means we need list. Great. Cool. And then we want to write that. Oh, we need to write the trips function that gives us back that. Cool. And then we want to add the visitors function that is the same thing over here. And instead of typing all that, I'm going to get rid of my, I'm just going to do this here. I need to switch it around. Return list maps of the trip. And so this is for visitor in this trip. Oh yeah. For trip. What am I doing here? For each trip, I need the visitors in self trips. Okay, so just doing the same thing. Let's see if all that copy pasting did any good. Has many visitors, failing there. Cool. Let's take a look at that error. The first one. Has many visitors. Missing one. Oh, did I do the same thing? No, I didn't do the same thing. Required argument end date. Is it not creating it with end dates? Yep, same deal. It's a lot of problems here. Okay. Has a unique list of all the visitors. Great. What are we missing here? Am I returning the correct thing? National park, visitors, itself. And we're turning a list of the set map, and we are in the self trips. we are taking each trip and just returning the trip visitor. So we should have a list of visitors. Cool. Are we wrong or is the test wrong? Oh, the fun game. Let's see. Has unique visitors. Cool. It's creating the right ones there. Park 1. Steve Wolf, Yosemite. Those tests look okay. What are we doing wrong here?
You might want to try, maybe the visitor attribute is private, so you might want to try the getter or,
On trip? No, looks it's
oh, never mind.
good guess. Or good try, not a guess. Turn list is out today. Yeah. Let's have it log stuff out in the test itself. Let's try that. P1 visitor. Cool. And
Well,
that
you might need to call that as a method.
yeah, you're correct. Thank you. Cool. Did it actually print it out? Did it not print it out for us? Nope, it didn't. Why didn't it print? Why do you hate us? Trip object has no attribute visitor. Why does trip object have no attribute visitor?
Oh, visitor. You misspelled it.
Aha. Cool. Hey, look at that. Green, 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 green. Cool. It would be extra cool if the tests were in the order that the deliverables were done, so you can actually see your green coming down. Another pull request. Okay, cool. So that was the same thing we did in visitor, only the other way around and with typos. So any questions before we do the last bit? Awesome. So we are returning a list of trips and we are returning a list of visitors. Cool. And that's getting, where is it? It's not being tested anywhere, but we'll put it in anyway. So in our trip, hey, there's our all right there. Good hint. So when we create a trip, we're just going to, yeah, trip all append self. Great. And so our trips and visitors functions. All right. And so our trips, we can just return that array. And it's on the park. Okay, cool. Did I do that backwards? Nope, I'm doing my own thing here. Never mind. We're probably gonna need that anyway, but yeah, I don't know what I was talking about. Trips and visitors. So let's get these last 3 done in the next 14 minutes. Okay, visitors create trip. So this is, yeah, so this is a method on the visitor instance, taking all these things and adding them. So visitor, going to define create trip. All right, so what does create trip want? Here we are. given a park object, a start date and end date strings, it'll create a new trip and associate it with that visitor and the national park. So easy. Here's where we want to import the trip. Import trip. Is it in quotes? I can never remember for Python. What did we do last time? Import from trip, import trip. What did I have that? Huh, that's a different syntax I'm used to. Cool. So we should have access to the trip class now here. And so we should be able to say, well, let me see. It's just going to create a new trip. Yeah, I guess we want to do that. And we're testing for, yeah, okay, cool. So I'm just gonna say, return, because if I'm creating something, I probably want it back. It's not testing for this, but for my own sanity. So we need a trip, and that's going to be visitor. Yep. So visitor is going to be self. The national park is going to be national park. And start date and end date. And that needs to be self there. Cool. Yeah, again, I don't know why that's not visitor, but that's the way it is. Let's see if that passes. Visitor can create trips. Great, still red. Questions about that?
So the reason that we didn't need to do the import until this, like, we're just basically calling the functions. Like in trip, I think we were calling functions from these other classes, right? And just by doing like dot notation, and that didn't need an import because we're not actually calling an instance of a class. We're just
pretty much. So these functions are methods because they're attached to a class. And so when you have an object that belongs to a class, that object has access to all of its methods. You don't need to import it. If we are creating a new one, so we actually are importing this, we're importing the class itself. So if we want to create a new one of those, we need to import it because otherwise we don't know what it is. Does that make a little bit more sense?
Gotcha. Yeah, that does make sense. Thank you.
Any other questions? Cool. 2 more to go. National park. Total visits and best visitor returns the visitor. Let's just do the first one first. Cool. Total visits. Cool. So we have I just lost my mind. We have total visits. We wanted to return the total number of times that park has been visited. Cool. So yeah, that just seems like returning the length of trips. Does that sound right?
Yep.
Cool. Self trips. All right. Correct total visits.
I think there was an issue with the test for this one.
Yeah, the test is wrong.
I believe it.
Checking the length of the returned value when it's already a length.
Yep. Who wrote these? Oh my God.
Also, speaking of this, on the best visitor test, it's. Oh, never mind. I'll ask when I get to it.
Yeah. Okay. So that fixing the test fixed it. Great. Our thing works. Questions about how that works? That seems pretty straightforward. And now, best visitor returns the visitor. What is that asking for? The visitor that visited the park most. All right. Ooh, that's interesting. Okay, yeah, cool.
The
That's
description is particularly
return,
effective in the repo
returns,
for
the,
this one.
returns the visitor. Great.
Yes.
And again, we could just return a visitor with the name Tom if we wanted to, if we want to be dicks about it. But yeah, this is actually an interesting one. So cool. We want to get all the visitors. So we have our visitors here, but that's going to give us a unique list of visitors. So I don't know if it's the best visitor, but it's a cool visitor. So let's just get the list of visitors here. Call it is because visitors is taken. Cool. So this is getting a list of all the visitors. So our task here, now that we have a list of the visitors themselves, is to get a count of each visitor and return the highest count. Thoughts? There's a couple ways we could do this.
So the way I did this was I initialized a dictionary,
Mhm.
and then I looped through do something specific. I looped through self.trips,
Mhm.
and I created dictionary entries with the key being the visitor name,
Okay.
and incrementing the value by 1 each time that visitor name appears in as the trip.visitor.name.
Mhm.
And then I iterated over self.visitors, and I returned the visitor whose name attribute equaled the max of visitors with the key of visitors.get, which
Cool.
returns the value of each key instead of just the key itself.
Awesome. So I'm going to comment this out for now. So let's loop through the visitors. So we're going to, or loop through the trips. So for trip in trips, loop, self trips. So here's where we're going to get trip visitor. And we're going to create a new dictionary. Did you use a dictionary or an object? Is there a better creating one? No, sorry, go ahead.
I used the dictionary curly braces, or yeah.
Like the object. So,
I'll just. I mean, you could just do dict of an empty string, but
that's easier.
that's what I did. Yeah.
I'm wondering if there might be a fancy way to like create a dictionary out of a list, but
I looked it up and there wasn't any like inbuilt functions it looked like.
okay, cool. Yeah, you never know. So we want to append. Wait, no, we want to see if it's in there, right? So if visitor, sorry, if trip visitor in viscount, viscount append, and we want visitor.
I could just copy paste my code into the chat if you want.
Sure. Not in. Let's get that word. Visitor trip. Yeah, the problem with an indent-based language is it's really hard to read if it's not in an editor.
Yeah.
Cool. I wonder if no, probably not. So if it's not in there, I'm going to say, yeah, let's do it this way. I'm going to say viscount. And are you doing by name? Yeah.
Oh, it actually, you're right. It should be 0. Because then I would be incrementing by 1 the very next line instead
Yeah,
of just
yeah.
yeah.
And then we say
Still passed on my end, so
well, it's not. I don't think it's testing right, but we'll find out. Plus equals.
actually it should still work. It's just the index would start at 1 instead of 0.
Oh yeah, still
Because
gonna
they
have,
would end up
it's still gonna be the biggest number. It's just not gonna be the right number.
yeah.
That's fine. That's fine. Cool. Get rid of that. Actually, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna, to make it easier to write, I'm gonna say that, and then each visitor. There we go. We'll probably be using that a little bit. Cool. So we've created our count map there, our count dictionary, and now we're going to, yeah, that max function is a little slick. So yeah, so we're going to. Is there a way to just find the max of a?
That was what my question was going to be.
Yeah.
Is that I didn't like iterating over essentially the same set twice, or the same list.
I wonder if there's a way to do that. 2 minutes. Max. Yeah, I guess not. Not a front. Cool. Yeah. So we'll loop through it again. For visitor in so did I do self for visitor and yeah, all that stuff again? Why not? Loop. We're gonna say if name max of, and then it's the array first. Yeah. Max. Oh, we're gonna want to look in viscount. Oh, you know we could
I'm kind of confused why you have to loop through it again. Like, okay, couldn't you just go straight to max with the viscount? Like, just return that.
Yes, so I can actually the reason I did this was because the test is specifically looking for best visitor to return an object, and it's looking for the name attribute on the object that this returns. So I need to return the object instead of just returning the name as a string.
Got it. That's weird. Cool. That works.
Oh.
I think we can also do like in keys of is keys a function in, how do you get the keys of a Python? Get keys from dict.
I think it's a method on the dictionary.
Oh, of course. Why would it not be? Everything else is, right? Yeah. So instead of looping through the full array, we can just loop through the thing in there. Built-in function or method. Oh, it's a method. Call it. Gross. Nope. Nope. I'm sure we can do it this way, one way or the other. Do that for exercise for the viewer. Cool. Same thing. Great. And so that passes all our tests. Fantastic. 30 seconds for questions. I have to jump out to another meeting. Feeling okay? Good? Bad? Goodish?
Will you be pushing this code so we can take a look at it later, or?
I won't be pushing it, but I will. Yeah, it has to be just in the video, I think.
Oh shoot! Actually, sorry, I do have a question.
Yeah.
In regards to the actual deliverables, that it's not being tested, but in the deliverables, they want us to make sure that within trips, the visitor and national park parameters are of type visitor and national park. Is there a way to check that type without importing visitors and national parks as a class?
Probably not. Or
okay.
Yeah, probably not.
Thank you.
Cool. Cool. Thanks for hanging out. I will post the video in the usual places, and I'll see you all in a little bit for stand down. Cool.